This conference will now be recorded.
So good morning everybody and welcome to this webinar, and we're going to be looking today at the key drivers to business growth. But just as a reminder before we get going is that you can catch up on all our previous webinars on our YouTube channel, which if you go to YouTube and search for Harts Limited, with limited spelt in full, you'll be able to catch up on anything that you've missed previously. Just to let you know as well that we have the use of the chat box, but seeing as we're just a small number this morning, I'd love it if you would just unmute yourselves and throw any questions that you want to ask. Please feel free to do that. If you don't want to do that, stick your question into the chat box so that we can able to run through those maybe at the end. But as I say, please interrupt me. Feel free, ask any questions that you like. If I can answer them, I will do. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't and I will come back to you. So we first of all have to start our presentation with a disclaimer. So here we go. Whoops, we've got a. You'll have to bear with me this morning. I'm actually doing this webinar whilst I'm on holiday, because when I arranged it, I didn't realise that we were actually away at the same time. So I'm actually down in Devon, and I'm relying on the internet in the place where I'm staying at. So you just have to bear with me whilst this is going on. So first of all, we have disclaimer. The following presentation is produced for general guidance only, and professional advice should always be sought before any transaction is undertaken. Individual circumstances can vary, and therefore no responsibility can be accepted by Harts Limited or any of their affiliates for any action taken or any decision made to refrain from action by attendees of this presentation. Okay, so we're going to be looking this morning at the key drivers to business growth, which are going to be looking at 7 key drivers which affect pretty much any business. And we're going to go through these and spend a couple of minutes on each one. We're only going to be talking this morning for about 30 minutes or so. So let's have a look at the getting more customers. We're going to look at converting sales leads to customers. We're looking at getting customers to spend more, getting customers to spend more often, and getting customers to remain customers for longer. We're going to look at pricing for maximum profit and systemizing everything. We're going to touch on each one in turn this morning. If you could just mute yourself if you're not already on mute to stop any background noise, that would be much appreciated. So hopefully you'll be able to get something out of this morning, even if it's just one point which you can then put into action. It will always help you to increase your turnover and eventually your profit. So if we first of all, let's look at the first key driver, which is actually getting more customers. Sounds easy, but it's not, as we all know, and we'll come on to some of the reasons why. But the first thing you want to do is do a marketing plan. I know we've dealt with a number of businesses over the years, and many of them just don't have any sort of marketing plan, or if they do, it's just up in their head, and they don't actually have anything written down to be measured by. So you want to actually look at doing a marketing plan, and part of that plan should be actually, what are you trying to achieve? What new customers are you trying to get? Do you have an ideal customer scenario, or are you just going to take any business that comes along? So these are all sorts of things you need to be putting into your marketing plan. Make use of social media. These days, there's so many ways of social media that you can generate business. So for instance, you've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and there's probably plenty of more. We've got Clubhouse coming out now as well, which is an audio version. There's various ways you actually get more customers, and a lot of this is very cheap and very simple to do. You don't have to spend a lot of money on investing in social media. If you're one of the big boys, obviously you need to have a social media strategy, but you can do that yourself. You don't need to bring in expensive outsourced costs. Direct mail is kind of old school really these days, but it still works, for the simple reason being that everybody's gone onto social media. So if you do something like direct mail, then potentially you might get some business from it. But bear in mind the responses and the effectiveness of direct mail is very, very small. So you've got to actually send out huge amounts of volume to be able to get some sort of return from it. I know we've got one of our participants in this webinar today is actually very much involved in direct mail, and he will be able to jump in there if he's got any comments to make on it. Martin?
Yes, morning everybody. Yes, Martin Kemp from Woodhouse, or Maximalism as the case may be. But yes, we are a leading direct mail agency in Manchester, working predominantly with the charity sector. And some of the returns on investment that we do get for our clients are quite eyebrow raising, if you like. It does work, because I've always had the old adage, if you can hang it on a wall or shove it through a letterbox, it works. And yeah, definitely the right creative is very, very important. The postal side of it is quite straightforward, but if you get that message across from a direct mail perspective, it definitely works.
Thank you very much, Martin. So yeah, you can see that it's still working out there despite the growth of social media. We've also got SEO, search engine optimization. Make sure that your website is friendly, is up to date, is mobile friendly, and so on. So it's worthwhile making sure that you have a decent website. Have a look at telesales. Do you employ anybody who's actually on the phone all the time? And it sounds like somebody's on the phone at the moment. If they could just mute themselves, please. So if you've got anyone if you've got the type of business that actually needs telesales, it's well worth investing in that. So for instance, we act for a marketing company, and all they're going to do is bang out on the phones and be working away on those phones. Word of mouth is obviously a good way of getting some more customers as well, and our recommendations and referral systems. Do you have a referral system in place in your business? So when you speak to anybody, any of your customers or your clients, do you actually ask them to say, well, for instance, do you know of anybody else who might benefit from our service? And ask them and ask for 2 or 3 names and get in touch with them. You might even want to reward people who do this. So for instance, you've seen it many times before, where you introduce a friend and you get 50 quid and the friend gets 50 quid. That seems to be around quite a lot. Obviously make sure you're not breaching any of your regulatory requirements of doing so, but that sort of thing obviously does work. Do you go to any networking clubs? You've got BNI, you've got Network In, you've got Business for Breakfast, and there's plenty of other local networking clubs run by chambers of commerce and independents as well. And it's well worth getting involved in those. But again, it depends on the sort of clients that you want. Tend to work for smaller businesses. That in networking clubs work very well indeed. And do you actually systemize what you do? Find out what the competition is doing as well. So can you do what they are doing? So for instance, if you were thinking, if money was no object, what would you do? And then you can say, right, well, if money was no object, I'd do that, but I'm only able to do this because I've got actually a limited budget. So as you can see, you might want to adapt what happens in those cases, but there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of ways of actually being able to get some more customers, and a lot of it is very inexpensive. One of the second key drivers is converting more sales leads to customers. So what we need to look at here is, do you actually have a marketing script? Do you have a sales script which you actually stick to? So you want to make sure that you actually plan your sales approach. So effectively automating your systems is very essential when you're doing this, and you need to practice your sales approach. You want to find out, you want to actually express the benefits of why people should buy from you, and then find out why customers say no. The key is always in the follow-up, and there's a very interesting research which I would love to just share with you, if you just bear with me 1 minute. If I can just bear with me 1 second. What I will do is I'll be able to, yes, here we go. if there's a way of actually following up where you're actually doing some sales leads. So for instance, if every time an engineering company was making a sale, he introduced a system for following up all the people who said no. So he had systems for following up all the people that said no. He visited them all. He diarised when he was going to telephone them. He had a system for sending them a newsletter. He had a system for inviting them to open days at his factory. He had systems for sending them press cuttings that he thought his customers would find useful. He had systems for sending copies of the letters he received from other delighted customers, testimonials. And he had systems for telling them about other contacts he was winning with prestigious customers. So you've got to be, the key is always in the follow-up, and we just need to follow up as much as you possibly can to be able to generate that lead. And some very interesting stats here. Of customers, 73% of customers say no at least 5 times before they actually buy. But 92% of salespeople give up before that all-important 5th no. So what does that actually mean? Well, you've actually only got 8% of salespeople who are persistent will have their pick of the 73% of sales. Very interesting research and well worth bearing in mind if you're actually selling. What you need to do is to just be following up all the time, having your systems in place to be able to follow up. And you can see the effect of actually doing so here. So the key is in the follow-up to converting more sales leads into customers. Point number 3, getting customers to actually spend more. When you go into McDonald's, they always say, do you want to go large? That's customers spending more. They're increasing the spend of each customer. We've looked at potentially increasing your prices. And people often think, well, if I increase my prices, then I'm going to lose some customers. We'll have more about that in a moment. But what we need to do is actually, it's more pricing psychologies that can be brought into here as to how you get customers to spend more. So for instance, if you show your customers expensive items first, and then you have a cheaper alternative, people anchor their price. And you anchor your price against the higher price first, so the second price looks cheaper. If you've got 3 options, always say the middle option is the most popular option, and that way around people tend to go that, and you price it in such a way that the middle price is the best way to go, and you generate the most profit. Have a look at bundling. Can you bundle some of your services together and therefore get people, your customers, to spend more? Are you able to offer bulk prices so people will spend more, but you might give them a small discount? Offer ranges, so the customer might say, well, actually, I want all of this range. I need all of it. So therefore, people will actually spend more with you. Do you upgrade your product? Is there an opportunity to sell upgrades for a small fee and trade ups? And have a look at pricing psychology. It's well worth having a look at some of these, and some of the 5 tips on pricing psychology. For instance, you may well have showing actually how you present your price. So do you present your price with, for instance, £1,000 maybe, a 1, a comma, 3 noughts, and a pence? Well, if you do that, research has shown that if you knock out the pence, knock out the comma, and just show 1 and 3 noughts, it's actually perceived to be cheaper, even though the price is exactly the same. And even if you can dispense with the currency symbol as well, then it's perceived to be cheaper. Showing your price in a smaller font is perceived to be cheaper than actually showing it in a larger font. Showing prices around yours which are much higher and showing your price as a lower price is again perceived to make your price cheaper, so you're getting customers to spend more with you as opposed to anybody else. And there's even showing prices in red. If you show your price in red, then the male half of the population will tend to buy it more than the female side. So if you're selling to the male population, put your prices in red. Research has shown that it's been associated, red is associated with savings and med-like savings, and therefore people will buy when you put your colour in red. There's a whole range of pricing psychology tips that are out there, which are well worth having a look at. So, and you can use those to get your customers to actually spend more with you. And then the fourth one rather, is getting customers to spend more often. So let's look at this. For instance, we've got an example here of hairdressers. So, you know, if you might have a script as a hairdresser to say, well, are you happy with your haircut? You are, that's great. If you're looking to keep it at your best, I will get it cut in 6 weeks' time. Where normally you might say, well, I only want to come back in 8 weeks' time. So effectively then you're saying, well, let's put a date in the diary now. For 6 weeks' time, you've actually increased the amount of times they're going to spend with you, because instead of coming every 8 weeks, they're coming every 6 weeks. And what you want to do is try and book it in at that time, so it's in the diary. You know you're increasing the number of times they're going to spend with you. Just ask clients, ask customers to see if they'll spend more often with you, and maybe launch a loyalty scheme. Why do you think we've got Tesco Club Card, we've got Sainsbury's Nectar Points, and there's various others that are out there? People feel loyal to the customer, to the supplier, and therefore they want to buy more often from them. You might want to develop a regular customer contact program, much the same as we've been doing with these webinars. We've been doing these webinars, as you say, every fortnight for the last 18 months or so. So therefore people feel potentially loyal to Harts. And make it easy for customers to buy from you, so they won't actually go elsewhere. Those are the sort of things that you want to do, so to get customers to spend more often with you. Point number 5 is getting customers to remain customers. And we want to get them to remain customers for longer. So why don't customers come back? And what we want to do is, the research has shown that in the average UK business, about 1 in 5 customers don't come back. The average 20% defection rate may not be the norm in your business or your industry, but every business has lost customers at some time. And yours is probably no different either. Now, there's a major piece of research that's out there, and they looked at why customers leave, and it found that 4% of them die or move out of your geographical reach. Not a lot you can do about that. 5% are referred to another supplier, 9% move to a cheaper supplier, and 14% are unhappy with your product or service. So, very interesting to show that only 9% shift due to price. And it's something that we've actually come across many times before. When we're doing strategic planning with our clients, it's very apparent there that people are not buying from our clients based on price. There's a whole range of reasons why people are buying, and this research seems to back it up. What people are buying from is they want some sort of dazzling customer care. And I've mentioned a pub in there. So say, for instance, let's look at an example of 2 different pubs. You go away, you're on holiday, you've got 2 pubs, or you go to your local pubs, you've got 2 pubs which are local to you. And one, you go in, you order your meal, and it takes about 40 minutes to come to you. It's shoved on the table, and you then have to wait probably half an hour to pay the bill, and you walk out. And you compare that with the second pub, where you go in, someone immediately comes to your table, asks to take your drinks menu, comes back in 5 minutes. So if you ordered your food, then they come over and deliver your food within a very short space of time. And then they say, is everything okay for you? Is there anything else that you would like? Would you like to see our dessert menu? And so on. Which one are you likely to go back to? It's the one that offers you the dazzling customer care. So you're showing that you care to your customers, and it's the same with any sort of business. You need to show your customers that you actually care. The other thing as well is to handle any complaints very well indeed. So if someone does complain, then they can actually be one of your best referrers if you turn it round the right way. So if someone complains, you immediately make sure that you put it right. And if you put it right in such a way that they're very happy with it, they might go along to a friend and say, well, look, I went to this place, something went wrong, but amazing service how they put it right, and they did this for me, they did that for me, and I certainly go back there. So you can turn a negative into a positive. So it's well worth making sure that you do have a very good complaints handling service. And then you want to educate the customers about the benefits of dealing with you as well. So make sure that you can say, well, if you deal with us, you're going to get this service, we'll be very personable, we'll make sure your issues are dealt with in 10 minutes, or we have a service time where everything is dealt with. For instance, we have all calls returned within 24 hours. We make sure our customers or our clients are up to date with everything that's going on, and so on. So you want to educate your customers about the benefits of dealing with you and keeping contact. And therefore, they will remain customers with you for longer. It's all about having some sort of dazzling customer service. Point number 6 is to price for maximum profit. And price is the most profitable profit driver, most powerful profit driver. So you need to get it right. So you need to add value. You need to make the value more out there. So you need to be showing to all your customers and all your clients to say, well, here's the real value that I'm adding for you. You need to create some unique selling points for your customers and then remove the risk and offer guarantees. Now, there's always guarantees that you can offer, and the common one is if you're not entirely satisfied with your service or your product, we'll guarantee a refund within 30 days. You even see some adverts on the TV now where they're advertising mattresses, and if you've not had a decent night's sleep on it, then you can quite happily return it within a certain time. Quite how they deal with that, I don't really know. But in many cases, there's the power of guarantees are out there. So think about what guarantees you can offer. And then you want to test your price. Test your price as often as you can. Now, what I would like to do is just to pause sharing this screen and show you another example of potentially. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so what we've done here is we're going to do a small profit diagnosis test, because people often say, well, what happens if I increase my prices? So I hope you can all see the screen. On the one side, we've got our current price. We'll say we've got 100,000 customers. The average price is £100, and they buy from us 4 times a year. We've got fixed overheads of 240,000, or fixed costs of 240,000 to 60%. We've got a gross margin of 40%, and you've got fixed overheads of 25,000. We've got our profit of 135,000. Now, people often say, well, if I put my prices up, I'm going to lose a load of customers. Well, okay, let's put our prices up. Let's put them up 10%. So we put our prices up 10%, and sorry, we put our wrong one. We put our prices up 10%, and we say our number of customers reduces by 10%. What's the actual profit effect on that? Well, we actually increase our profit by nearly 15%. From 135,000 to 155,000. And actually what we're doing here is we're making more profit by working less hard. So yes, you can see, even if we put up, we lose maybe a few more. Let's see what happens where we only come down to 850 customers. We're still making more profit. We're still making 7% more profit just by increasing our prices by 10%. But there's all sorts of dynamics within here as well. So what if we put our customers back to £1,000, 1,000 customers, our average price goes back to £100, but we get them to buy from us 5 times a year. We get a nearly 30% increase in our profit from 135,000 to 175,000. So as you can see, the fear of losing customers by putting your prices up, bearing in mind that only 9% of people are shifting on price, is one which is a fairly common myth. Yes, if you're in a very competitive industry where price is the main comparison factor, then yes, you need to take that into account. But in most cases, in a lot of cases, certainly it isn't. And as you can see here, let's go back to this and say, well, let's put our prices up again by 10% to £110 for our average price, and say we go down, we lose 150 customers, we lose 15% of our business. We're still making a lot more profit, we're doing a lot less work. I think that becomes a bit of an ideal. So have a look at this. If you want, I can send you across a copy of this spreadsheet. Just drop me an email, and you can play around with the figures to your heart's content. But as you can see, price is not always the deciding factor. So let's go back to Harts. Okay. Bear with me 1 second while we just come back to where we were up to. So that's what all about pricing for maximum profit is all about. And the final driver is looking at systemizing everything. And you want to systemize as much as you possibly can. So for any of you out there who've not read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's essential reading for anybody who really is in business. You can get it on Amazon. It's quite an old book these days, but it's well worth a read, and it's all about systemizing. So you need to be able to systemize absolutely everything. We've talked about systemizing already on the follow-up, but you want to make sure that everything else is actually systemized as well. So you want to make sure that you have systems for referrals, for lead generation, for lead conversion, and so on. You want to systemize your internal processes. You want to map out your processes and see where your pinch points are. Something we've mentioned on our previous webinar in relation to cash is king and cash collection and so on, where you end up having your pinpoints for cash coming in, and where the cash is actually tied up in your business. Well, much the same is you want to map out all your processes that you can do that. There's some useful apps out there. Miro is one, that's M-I-R-O. If you want to have a look at that as an app for mapping out your processes to see where you can actually systemize what you're actually doing, that will help you do that. And certainly it's well worth having a consideration. It can be applied for billing and cash collection we've talked about. You might want to systemize getting testimonials. For instance, every time you do a piece of work, do you ask your customer or your client for a testimonial? Do you ask them, now that you've benefited from the sort of work that we've done, do you know anybody else who can benefit from that? Do you even have a system from opening the post to make sure the post is distributed the correct way? Obviously, that's come down a lot with emails and so on, but we still get a mountain of post in our office. Do you have a system for opening the post to make sure it's basically as efficient as you can? And everyone should follow them up so it becomes part of the culture of the business. So what you're actually doing is systemizing everything. It becomes cultural. This is how we operate, and this is how we can actually generate more profit. If you think of the McDonald's example again, the way everything is systemized within there, it's a very famous example where you can teach a 16-year-old school leaver to produce a perfect burger, and it can be the same in Land's End or it can be the same in John O'Groats, assuming that you've got a McDonald's in those places, I don't know. But it's very much a systemized process of doing things, and that's done in a way that it creates maximum efficiency and produces more profit, and you can grow your business that way. So each of the drivers we've talked about will help you to grow your business. You don't need to use all of them all at once, but you can use all of them together at some point. It's well worth having a look at all of these and seeing, well, yes, I can take away something from what we've touched on today. There's a lot more in depth that we can go into. Obviously, we've just touched on a lot of it. And if you want any assistance on anything we have touched on today, please get in touch and we can certainly help you. And if you want a copy of that spreadsheet, please feel free to get in touch and I can get that emailed across to you. Our next webinar is in a fortnight's time, and that is going to be on mental health in the workplace. And I'm delighted to have Professor Sandeep Ranote joining us. Those who were on our question time will know that she was on there. She has been a regular contributor to Radio 4 and on TV talking about mental health, and she's going to be talking to us and explaining what we do, what we need to do, what other stuff that we need to be talking about. So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to try and answer them. But if not, anybody who wants to put anything into the chat box, anybody want to unmute yourself? Robert Gibbons said, "Thank the E-Myth is a fantastic book. Great if you've read it. It's well worth having a read. It's all about how a woman in a pie shop systemised her business because she was getting overwhelmed with what she was doing and managed to systemise everything and make her life that much easier." Martin.
No, thanks, Stephen. As good as it's going to be, as good as ever. Lots of very good tips and bits and pieces in there. It's always enlightening, to be honest with you, because you think you know it all, but you don't, do you? And it's sometimes it's a kick like this that just motivates you that little bit more. So thank you. Great,
thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar, as I say, which is in a fortnight's time. I will be back from holiday then. I'm doing this actually from down in Devon, so
you're looking well tanned.
Yes, it's
or is that the reflection from that's the reflection from the mahogany in the background, I'm sure.
That's probably right. Thank you very much indeed for everybody for joining us this morning. And if you bear in mind, a copy of this will appear on YouTube later on today. And if you want to recap on anything, please feel to let me know. If you want a copy of the spreadsheet, again, please get in touch. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.
Lovely. Thanks.